My first husband had an addiction, so he took everything from the house and sold it. Even the iron, the pots and pans. If I left the house for work, things would be gone. Come out from the rehab center and go straight to get drugged. I knew what his ex-wife's name was. I searched her up, and I see these pictures of her and him and new kids, new babies, and that's what shocked me.
Immigrants across the globe, welcome again to another episode of the Immigrant Nation podcast. Today we are focused on your own North Star. We are honored to welcome Shirin Ariff, a six-time international best-selling author, life transformative coach, and inspirational speaker out of Canada. Shirin's your immigration journey from Calcutta, India to eventually settling in Canada is extraordinary to say the least. Your experiences of how immigrants can overcome adversity is incredible to listen to. And if you can focus your energy on challenging marriages and overcoming addiction and abuse, we know we are riding in the right bus with the right bus driver to help us learn how to overcome such adversity. Your memoir, The Second Wife, Seduced into Slavery, offers a raw and unflinching look at your experiences, inspiring countless others to find their own strength. She is with us today at the Immigrant Nation podcast. Shirin, welcome, and what say you?
Well, thank you so much, Martin. It is my honor to be on Immigration Nation podcast, and I say hello and greetings to everyone listening and watching this from all over the world. Thank you so much for your presence, for your listening.
You talk about life and see life from a very different perspective. And really today, if it's possible, I want us to serve people who experience abuse in a relationship, no matter what kind of a relationship that is. If I can lay the background, and I'm hoping you can do a better job than I did, you were in two previous marriages that did not work out the way you had hoped they would. And so walk us through what your previous marriages were as an immigrant and how that adversity has contributed to who you've become today.
Thank you for that question. It's a loaded question, so I'm going to unpack the pieces slowly. First of all, yes, I was born and raised in India, specifically in the city of Joy, which is Calcutta. And I went to a Catholic school. I was born in a family where my dad is a Muslim and my mom was born in a Hindu family. So I grew up with a very open mind. And so it was interesting with a Hindu mom and a Muslim dad and being raised in a Catholic school. I had a very open mind, and I also had a confused mind because you see, there used to be, if you know about the history of India, there's always something going on between Hindus and Muslims, having conflicts. They live together, they fight together like siblings. It's like sibling rivalry. So I grew up in the middle of that. I was the firstborn. My dad was the youngest kid in the family. So as a girl child, I wasn't allowed to choose things for myself. The parents decide, when you're going to get married, which school you're going to go to, what courses you're going to study, what subjects you're going to study, all of that. So I didn't know really how to make decisions for myself. And coming from that space where I learned from my grandmother and all my family members that being an obedient girl means you will be a successful person, because everybody likes obedient people. So obedience is a virtue. And so I broke that rule as a kid because all my cousins, they got married. Even if they went to university, they didn't complete it. They dropped their education, they got married. I was the one who fought to go to university, and I was the first girl in my, I think my generation and the generation before me to actually complete university education and have 2 degrees. So I already was criticized then for being, rebellious. And then when I got married, I was married in India. My first husband was a wonderful man, absolutely soft-spoken and highly educated. In those days, he was doing a computer software work. However, he was addicted to drugs, and as a result of that, you know 8 years of my marriage fell apart because he went spiraling down in his addiction. No amount of rehab would work on him. He would come out from the rehab center and go straight to get drugs. So that was something very shameful, because in India it wasn't something that people did openly. It was an uncommon thing to do. There was not much education, and I certainly had no awareness about how to handle a drug addict or drugs or anything, because in my family it was unheard of. So it was very hard for me to I got to know about it after I was 6 months pregnant, and I didn't know how to support my husband. And then eventually I, talk to some people, some friends, and they told me go to church, find some help there. And then through them, I found a Christian rehabilitation center, and he went there. But the point is, it was always my fault, because as a woman, I could not be that influence where my husband would give up drugs. Like I wasn't that great woman who transformed her husband by being this very obedient and good wife. So it was my fault. I was blamed. I was shamed. And what didn't really help was that he had a stepmother. So the stepmother didn't want him at all. Forget about wanting me and my daughter. And then I gave birth to a girl child. So in India, where men are considered, like the boy child is considered a great, glorious thing. So having a girl child was also something that wasn't very appreciative. So nobody really wanted us. My ex-husband lost his job, and he went through we went through a lot of hardship and difficulty. And when you don't have money, nobody wants you. So this is not even, I haven't even immigrated. That's my situation in my own home country, in my motherland. That's where I was. And then eventually he got worse. He was on needles. The doctors were prescribing HIV tests. So my sister-in-law, who was a doctor, she said, that's it. You've tried for 8 years. It's time for you to go back. So she stood for me, and she said, go back to your parents and look after the girl. Forget about my brother. Look after the girl. You have a responsibility towards your daughter. I go back to my parents' house, and there's only shame, gossip, slander, accusation, stigma, because I've done something bad. I went to university. Now I'm divorced. So I was this horrible girl, who had no character, who was not a good wife, and nobody wanted us. So the only good thing was my father was supportive, and he believed in me, and he sent me back to school. So I already had a university degree. I went back, did a teacher's degree, went back to school, got a job, did outstandingly well, got a job before my degree. And then my mother was worried that I was in my late 20s, I was too young, that I should get remarried. And so, the push and the pressure for me to get remarried, because I can't be on my own as a woman. It's not safe, it's not good. And then eventually, my second marriage was my gateway to Canada, because my second husband, was an immigrant. His family used to live in our neighborhood. His sister is married in our family. He was from my culture, he was from my country, but he had come to Canada long ago. He was 12 years older than me. And he was married here. He said he was divorced. And then when he saw me as a divorced woman with a child, he offered to get married to me. And my parents were very happy about it, because the idea is, from India, when we look at the Western world, it feels like they are better off. They have a better life. So my parents wanted me and my daughter to have a better life. And they thought, okay, this man really likes my daughter. She should say yes. So I was not interested in getting married, but under pressure, I said yes. And then my parents were saying, we're getting old and your daughter will have a better life. And that's how in 2005, I came to Canada on a spousal visa. My husband had sponsored me at that time, and I came to Canada in 2005. However, he had applied for the spousal visa because we had got married in India in 2003. So he had applied for the spousal visa in 2003, and I didn't get the visa for 2 years because I needed my daughter's custody to take her out of the country. So there were lots of layers to cross, lots of hurdles to cross. And then eventually I got my visa and I ended up here in Toronto. And that's when an entirely different journey began.
So,
Journey of the unknown.
before we get into the journey of an immigrant, if
Yes.
all listeners are like me, they already have questions, right? We all know that
Yes.
most Indian marriages are pre-arranged marriages by
Yes.
obviously your family, parents,
Yes.
to be precise. We also know that there is clear data out there that pre-arranged marriages work better than the typical Western style of getting married, right? While we understand in your situation there was addiction that led to the end of the first marriage, and then the second marriage was also arranged by the parents so that you could find your way to Canada. Question I have in the back of my head: why did you feel like it was always your fault that the first marriage did not work out?
There is an expectation in the Indian culture at the time when I was young and growing up, in my 20s. There is an expectation that the boys could be anything. They could be drinking, they could be smoking, they could be womanizing, they could be doing all of that as a young bachelor. But once they get married, it is the job of the woman to bring him to a decent way of living, so that she is an influence. She stops him from drinking and smoking and doing all the reckless kind of living, so that he learns to live a sober, decent life. Now, I had no education about how difficult drug addiction can be. So I also grew up thinking that, okay, he is like any man who has all these habits, but he is going to learn to behave himself once he's married. And so I kept giving him chances and talking to him, sometimes crying, sometimes pleading, sometimes getting angry, sometimes, different ways of telling him, stop this, and stop this. But I had
Talk to
no
us
idea.
about obedience
Sorry?
versus success. How are those two related?
Sorry, say that again. Obedience versus success.
Yes.
How is obedience and success related? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well,
At least from the
okay.
Indian cultural perspective.
Yes. So I feel obedience and success can be related in a situation where there is respect for obedience. Obedience is a virtue, But let's say if I'm being obedient to you, and you take that as you disrespect that, you think that's weakness, you think I can make a fool out of this person, then obedience does not work. It's not successful. But there are people that value obedience. They have respect for women who are obedient, and they will honor that. Their obedience means successful relationship.
Okay, very interesting. So the second marriage gets you into Canada.
Yes.
Then what happens?
So now for the 2 years that I was waiting for my visa, my ex-husband used to send me pictures and say, this is the place where you're going to come and live. I'm getting it painted. I'm getting it furnished. I'm getting a TV. He used to send me pictures of all of that. And then when I landed here on October 28 in 2005, I go into an apartment in a not so, I mean, it wasn't a very good area because there were all kinds of people standing on the road, which made me feel uncomfortable. And
so that's fascinating because you're coming from Calcutta,
yes,
where there is crowded streets. So
yes,
why did that feel different?
Okay, so because I was born and raised in sheltered in a sheltered way, I always went out with my family mostly, and I was born there. I kind of knew. I didn't venture off into strange new places, but there was this lady standing outside the apartment, just outside the door, and she had very bright makeup on, and her clothes were very inviting kind of clothes, and she was basically standing there doing her own kind of whatever she did. So I was a little bit worried with the way she was conducting herself, that why is she standing at the door of the house that I'm going to go inside? So, but she, later on, as I lived there, I know who she was, and she lived in the neighborhood and things like that. But regardless of that, anyways, I went up the stairs and none of what he said was there. There was no furniture. There was an IKEA bed, which was the frame, not the bed, the frame. It was propped on the wall, against the wall. Somebody had to build it. And there was a mattress on the floor. And then my new husband, he tells me, I gotta go. I dropped you and I'm gonna see you tomorrow morning because I have to go. And that was another thing that made me feel weird because, normally when a husband and wife are far away from each other and they've been having a long distance relationship, and then the wife has just arrived, which husband will not want to be with his wife? But he said he needed to work, like any normal person would want to take that day off. But that's what I thought. And then he said he had to go and he would come back the next day because he had work to do. And because he did immigration work, and most of his clients were from India and the countries in the East. So when it's night here in Canada, it's day in India. So he would work at night. And so that was also another, like a kind of a shock for me. And then he left, and now in India, I had people around me. I had a home, proper home, but here all of a sudden I'm in a new environment. I don't have access to a phone. I am with my daughter in an apartment with nothing in there. And then, so that's how I began my journey in Toronto, Canada, feeling absolutely alone.
You migrate to a new country, you're feeling loneliness, which most immigrants go through anyways.
Yes.
Why is And I don't mean to demean your story or your experience,
at
but
all.
why is your loneliness, your feeling alone, relevant in your life? Why is that important during that time period?
Yes, it is relevant because already, other than my husband, I don't know anybody else in this country. And the one person that I know in this country, and the one person because of whom I came to this country, but otherwise there was no need for me to come to Canada. I came here because my husband was here. If my husband lived in China, I would go to China. If my husband lived in Africa, I'd go to Africa. My husband lives here. I came to him here, and he wasn't there with me on the very first evening of me landing in this country.
His absence from your home the first night you arrived from Calcutta, India to Canada, what does that do to your relationship and to your marriage?
Well, it brought fear of God knows what I'm going to go through, because I was carrying the experiences of my first marriage, where my first husband, as a result of drugs, lied to me all the time. He was not honest because he had to justify or lie and cover up for the money he took away and he spent on drugs. He was always lying to me. I learned that it was difficult to trust him, and I wanted to make a fresh start here with my new husband, and already he's left me and gone. So the fear of betrayal, like I felt betrayed, that why wouldn't he want to be with me? And I felt afraid that now what is this going to lead to? Because when he came, in the 2 years he came to visit me 7 times, that man who came to visit me on Valentine's Day, he flew to India. For my birthday, he flew to India. It was very hard for me to believe the man who came, who said he couldn't stay without me, and came to visit me 7 times in 2 years, and spent tons of money on calling cards and talked to me for hours. That same man didn't want to stay the first night with me in Canada. You get my point? He built my expectation that, okay, like we can't live without each other. We're going to be together finally. And then it's like an anticlimax what happened here. So that's what made me feel scared, very scared, that okay, is he showing his true colors now? And he was pretending to be someone else when I was in India. So that was my state of mind at that time.
Walk us through or why your second marriage also ended.
So the first day itself, I saw a red flag because he didn't stay with us. And because everything that he said was happening, how he was decorating the house, I had no demands. I didn't know what to do in Canada, how to decorate the house or whatever. I was overly happy that he was a normal, healthy man who didn't have an addiction. My first husband had an addiction, so he took everything from the house and sold it. Even the iron, the pots and pans. If I left the house for work, things would be gone from the house. But now I had a man who I felt that I was healing when my second husband would tell me, I just bought a television, or I bought a fridge for you. So I used to feel like, okay, finally I have a normal, healthy person, who's thinking in a healthy way towards the marriage. And then eventually, when all of this happened, the first thing that stopped me from questioning him earlier in the marriage was that obedience. It was that obedience, because I didn't want him to feel I am ungrateful. He married me. He accepted my daughter from my first marriage, and he brought me here to this country. So I was grateful, because there were other marriage offers for me in India. People were wanting to marry me, but they didn't want my daughter. He was one man who accepted my daughter. So that meant a lot to me. And so I felt like if I asked him questions, I would sound like an ungrateful person. And so I used to shut myself up and put up with it. And we had no evenings and no weekends with him. And then weekends he was gone. And basically, this went on for some time. And then eventually I didn't ask him where he goes, but I wanted to test the waters and see what exactly is going on. So I used to tell him, okay, can you take leave from your work and take us out for one evening? Like, can we go for a movie? I've not seen Toronto at night. And I was scared to go out anywhere, honestly. I didn't go anywhere. So after he left, my daughter and I would look out of the window because we didn't even have a television. So then when I told him that I want to go out with him in the evenings or weekends, and he used to say, how much money did your father send you to go for these outings? Because in Indian culture, dowry was a big thing in those days. And so his point was, how much dowry did your dad give us for you to make those demands that we should go out in the evenings? So that was the beginning of the decline of my married life. And within 6 months, I was already questioning and doubting that I'd want to know where he goes, but I didn't know how to figure that out. Within 6 months of landing here, on Good Friday, I suddenly had an attack of paralysis on my face. And it looked like I was having a stroke, but I wasn't. And I was all by myself. At night, all of a sudden, this side of the face was distorted, and my eye wasn't closing. And I thought I'm having a stroke, and my daughter was 11-year-old kid. So I called him and I said, listen, there's something happening to me. I think I'm having a stroke, or I don't know what's happening. I'm looking in the mirror, my face looks distorted. I need you to come here and take me to the hospital, because I didn't know anything about the medical system over here. And he didn't come. So that was another red flag. He didn't show up for me. And that was the time when I was panicked and my daughter was very scared. He comes in the morning, takes me to the hospital, which is 1 block away from my house, and leaves me there and says, you have to wait in emergency and the doctors will see you. And then when you're done, you call me, I will come and pick you up. And then I waited for 9 hours to have my turn in the emergency waiting room. It took so long. He said he had to go to work, and he left me and my daughter with McDonald's. And he said, you figure it out and go home. And so that was another thing that scared me, and I felt like, who is this man that I married? He came to India so many times professing love and trying to show that he's so madly in love with me, and I'm falling ill and he's not there for me. So those were all red flags, and I felt not loved. And so after that paralysis, I started getting a little bit more assertive, aggressive, and I started telling him, I'll not let you go. One day you have to stay. You have to stay at home. You have to stay at home. No, you can take leave one day from work, and it's his work. He's not working for someone else. He owns the business. So when I started putting my foot down, that why are you going and where are you going? No, I need to know because I don't feel well and you're not with me. That's when he called up my dad and he said, you can take her back. I don't want her. Because it's in my house, it has to be my rules. And your daughter is questioning me. And nobody's allowed to question me. So he saw that as disobedience, and then he complained to my daughter. Then he called, to my father. Then he called my cousin, who lives in Texas, and he told my cousin, take her away, I don't want her. And then I got a good scolding from my mother and my father, and they said that, why are you questioning him? Is he not providing for you? Maybe he's really busy. He's one person who is handling all his work. You have to not be so demanding, and this is your second chance at marriage. So behave yourself and don't ask him questions and just adjust. So, and my mom said, there's no room for you here. Like, you can't come back.
So your mom rejects you.
Yes.
Your second husband seems to be rejecting you.
Yes.
How do you find your path?
So, well, my first path was I started rejecting myself. So that was my first journey, where I gave into the fact that I looked ugly, because my face was distorted at that time. My one eye wouldn't close, my I would drool when I used to eat food. So I told myself, any man who sees me will feel like I'm ugly. So whatever from here on, whatever my husband is offering me is a bonus. I can't make any demands. I have nowhere to go. I have a daughter to raise. Where will we go? And so my first reaction was I shut myself up. I just said, okay, I will just keep being obedient. I will just follow whatever he says and keep going. Like, I'll just keep quiet in the marriage. There'll be no problems. That's all. So I kept quiet, and then I did not have kids for 2 years after coming to Canada, and he used to say I'm evil. And he wanted children, and he used to say I'm evil, and God has punished me, and he's given me this ugly face because I'm evil, and because I've questioned him, because I trouble him and I ask him where he's going, so I'm evil. And so I used to cry. I used to hate myself. I felt like my life doesn't matter. And I used to curse my life, and I used to think it's better if I die. And so that's how I lived until 2 years later, I did get pregnant, and I gave birth to twins. And then my parents were very happy, and they kept predicting that my husband is going to change because I have given birth to twins. I have a boy and a girl, and I have children with him, and now he's going to soften. But that didn't really happen. He basically moved his immigration business to my living room, and he taught me how to do all that work, filling out the forms, the applications, putting the submission letter, answering phone calls and things like that. And he piled on most of the work, except for the complicated cases, but the easy work, he piled on all of that on me. And so now I'm raising the kids, I'm cooking, I'm doing everything, and I'm working for him. And he used to say, this is our business. So he never paid me for working those hours. And coming from India, like, I felt it was shameful to tell him, where's my money? Like, I didn't grow up like that. My dad controlled all the finances in the house. The men do that. So I never questioned him. He was my provider, the head of the family. He bought all the grocery, paid all the bills. So I didn't question him for the money. But something didn't feel right, because even when the kids were sick, there was a time when my son was very sick. He had a bronchial attack and he was in the hospital. He didn't show up for his son. And he was a little baby, and he didn't show up for his son. So no matter what happened, he just couldn't come in the evenings. So I started feeling something is not right. And then in 2009, around that time, everybody was, eventually I had a TV, and because he had a computer and he gave me a phone, I had access to the internet. I started a Facebook account, and through that Facebook account, I was curious I knew what his ex-wife's name was. I searched her up, and I see these pictures of her and him and new kids, new babies. And that's what shocked me. That, okay, I got a slight idea that he is with her. And then I reached out to her. I sent her a message and I asked her to meet me. I met her at a mall and I asked her, what is her relationship with my husband? I told her who I was. I told her I was married to him. And she said that they had got divorced. But after the divorce, they were legally divorced, but he ended up having a relationship with her while I was waiting for 2 years for my visa in India. He went and had a kid with her. And all of that was shocking for her, and it was shocking. She didn't know I existed. I didn't know she existed. And that's how that was it. And then she confronted him and she asked him that, are you married to this lady? And he said no. He said that I was a delusional, crazy woman who imagined that he was my husband. And then so she asked to see my marriage documents. And so I showed my marriage documents from India because we had gotten married in India. So I showed the marriage documents to her, and she went and confronted him. And he said, how many such documents do you want? It's so easy to make fake documents in India. That's a fake document. Then I said, okay, what about the children? He said those children were not his. And he didn't know whose children they were. That was rock bottom for me. He insulted me, but when he insulted the children, I couldn't take it. So I went first to his family, to his older brother, and I told them, this is this is the situation, what should I do? His older brother said, just sue him for fraud. Just take him to court. But my father said, don't do that. Be an obedient wife. Win him with your love. He's done what he's done. You rise above that. And one day he will come around. That was his suggestion. And I did not listen to my parents at that time because my life was miserable. I was like a slave. I was working for him, earning the money. He invested all that money in real estate. Then he used to take me to clean off all the real estate properties. I was his janitor, his supervisor. I was doing all the work, and he was making all the money. And then eventually I reached out to a neighbor who led me to a lawyer. That lawyer listened to my story, and then I applied for legal aid. And then after applying for legal aid, because I had no income, I qualified for legal aid. Legal aid in this country gives you a certain limited amount of money for a certain number of hours to take legal advice from the lawyer. But my case was complicated because every time my lawyer and my ex-husband met, first of all, he never hired a lawyer, and he would say yes to everything my lawyer would say, and then he would go back, and when my lawyer sent him an agreement to sort things out, he would go back on his word and he would say, no, I don't agree. So like that, he wasted all the hours that I had from legal aid. And then eventually my lawyer was so upset that she decided to fight my case pro bono. And she said, I will not take fees. This is too much. But the sad thing is, the moment I saw a lawyer and I said, I want to separate and I want to get divorced, I filed for my separation, and within a few weeks, I was diagnosed with a cancer that had spread all over my body. Mm-hmm. Okay? And no one knew whether I would make it after the surgery or not. No one knew whether I would live or not. The doctors also didn't know. So I had to park my separation process and I had to go in for my cancer surgery. At that time, he packed his bag, took off. He completely abandoned his kids. My older daughter, who was 15 years old at that time, 19 years old at that time, she quit her studies, she quit her job, and she became the caregiver of these children. And she started looking after me. So I went through my surgery all by myself. He didn't come. He went for a vacation with his first wife. I went for my surgery. I went for my chemo. I came back absolutely clear that I want to sort out my life. I want a divorce. And so the thing is, between his first wife and him and me, his first wife was compassionate, and she actually was worried that what will happen to me and the kids. He was the one who was actually not compassionate. And he did not want to leave me, but he did not want to acknowledge me as his wife. He said, I should be someone living on the side. And I didn't want to live my life like that. When I went for my cancer surgery, that's when I realized how because my life matters. Because more than facing cancer as a mother, facing my kids and telling them, hey, I got cancer, I might die, was more difficult than facing cancer. My youngest one was 3 years old, my twins were 6 years old, and I'm telling them, mommy may not come back from the surgery. And those kids the father has walked out on them, and if I died, those kids, God knows what their future would be. I didn't want them to be separated and sent to foster homes. We have no other family here. Yes, there is a system that the government has, but as a mother, I felt what I could give my kids, no government and no system can give. A mother is a mother. So I fought cancer for my kids. My reason for fighting cancer was that. There was no other reason. I was fed up of my life and all the pain it was. Every day there was verbal, emotional, mental abuse. Every single day. And I had no money. So my biggest fight with cancer was for my children. When they gave me anesthesia on the surgery table, I begged God to give me another chance at life. I literally begged him, and I said, I'm so sorry that I took this life for granted, and give me one more chance, and I'm going to serve your people. And I didn't know at that time how I would serve the people. It's God's people. I didn't know how I would do that. But after I came out, I filed for my divorce. I got my divorce. And then whatever little money I got, I invested some of it in my own personal development and growth. I started taking courses called Landmark, Next Level Training, Tony Robbins, like one after the other. I took lots of courses on personal development. You see, I had education which would help me get a job or have a career, but I didn't know when life hit me how to pick myself, put myself back together, and lead my family, my little children. I needed to work on that. My children had seen me being this submissive, abused, like out of balance person. Either I was submissive and being abused, or I was someone who was getting angry and fighting back. But they didn't see me taking positive, massive action and leading them, showing them what is empowerment, trusting myself. My gut feeling kept telling me from day one that this marriage was not going to work. But I just gave in to my obedience. And now, yes, obedience means success. My obedience is to me. Now I learn to be obedient to the inner voice that is guiding me. And so after I did all these personal development courses, in one of the courses, there was a lady who was a publisher. She gave me a chance and she said, would you like to write your story? Because I was standing and I was talking about what I went through and people were crying. And so they said, okay. She said, write your story. Now, my biggest fear was people should think I'm a second wife. Because for me, that was shameful. I didn't want people to think I'm a home wrecker. I didn't want people to think that I hurt another family or I broke another family. So for me, being a second wife was shameful. He also used to threaten me all the time that if you tell anyone anything about us, then you will be deported, because I am still in a relationship with my first wife, which means your relationship is null and void. And so that was my greatest fear, that what will the world say that I'm a second wife and I will be kicked out of this country. And so I faced my fear and I owned the truth and I wrote the book, The Second Wife.
Let's talk about immigrant mothers who may be experiencing a difficult time in their current relationships in whatever country they have migrated. Not necessarily the type of difficulties you had, because all situations may be difficult. But if they are in a relationship that is not honoring their marriage and is not honoring the vows of that marriage, today, how are you encouraging immigrants that are in that situation to find their freedom and to find their power?
So my biggest question to them is, especially if they have children, what is their why? Why are they staying in that dysfunctional marriage? What legacy are they going to leave behind for their kids to take away?
So if I may take you back,
Yes.
you're talking about the importance of someone who's in pain or in an abusive relationship and then being able to recognize what legacy they're leaving behind. In many conversations I've had with people in abuse, I'm not sure legacy reigns anywhere.
I agree.
Among the most important
that is true.
Things that they may start thinking about, or even because really whenever you're in abuse, and correct me if I'm wrong, the one thing that you're looking for is escape, right? How do I get out of this situation, right? And so practically give us practical steps for those who are listening to this show, they're listening to your words, and really they are in trouble.
Okay.
Right? They are squeezing in 10 minutes to hear our conversation before they can not be able to listen to us again, right? So how do we get out of it?
Some of the things I did in that situation when I was in the thick of all that was journaling everything that happens. That really helped me. Even when you go for a divorce, if you're looking for an exit in the marriage, journaling what happens. Writing the date, writing the time. This is the time, this is what he said, this is what he did, all of those details. I know that it is difficult in that frame of mind to be so present and to be so you cannot separate yourself and be level-headed and journal everything, but that really helps. Even especially if people are in a situation of domestic abuse and things like that, keeping track of date and time when things happen in the household is very important. The second thing is, don't challenge the person who is like a predator in your life or who is abusing you. Don't challenge. Don't challenge the person, because he may harm you further. Very important to ask for help. A lot of the times people think that it is shameful, but I have learned after I shared my story that domestic abuse for women and children is an epidemic. It is a pandemic all over the world. After I shared my story, there are women from all over the world that have written to me, they have messaged me, and they've said I'm shocked to hear that after so many years and how we have progressed, the world has progressed, and yet there is so much domestic abuse hiding behind people's homes, within the walls of people's homes. So asking for help, we have to find someone trustworthy and ask for help. Maybe a friend, maybe another woman, maybe a neighbor. That's what I did. I asked for help. The first time is the hardest. The hardest thing you can do for yourself is ask for help and say, this is what I'm dealing with. Because when we are in the thick of all this abuse, we are not able to see things clearly. We are emotionally charged. We are, our emotions are controlling a lot of the cognition, the perception, and things like that. So having someone else who is outside of the family to trust and share the information is very helpful sometimes.
If I may summarize what you just said, you say the first incredible step to take toward the journey of healing and taking action is journaling, and journaling live as things are happening. That way you're present.
Yes.
And then the next step is to not challenge the person who's taking advantage of you, or not challenge the situation that is taking advantage of you.
Yes.
And then the next step was to seek help. And that depends with what immediate help may be available from you.
Yes.
So if I can just bring it back again, what was life like for you?
One more thing. The other thing to do is, like, when you have help, because let's say in Canada, we have a social service system. You might get someone who would help you get away from that, because we have shelters for women where, if a woman is being abused, she can create an exit strategy where she can leave with her children and be in a safe space, which are called women's shelters and women's homes. Now these shelters, and nobody needs to know where she is, for her own safety, or where the children are for their own safety. So not to share with anyone when they plan to leave, how they plan to leave, and also to keep some money for themselves secretly, so that when they leave, they have some money in their hands, to have some money kept somewhere secretly.
In the Western world, we have facilities where women who are abused can always go for help, and part of that is the women's shelters.
Yes.
How about in places where those facilities are not available? How do immigrant women who are held back, for example, by religious beliefs, especially if they're immigrants, into places like the Middle East, where religion is not too very friendly toward the women movement or the women agenda, right? In those kind of scenarios where you have immigrants who migrated to those countries, they're going there for other reasons, but they find themselves in an abusive relationship, in an abusive place, how do they get themselves out of that situation? Do the same principles still apply?
Well, some of the principles, I don't know the laws of all the countries, but a good thing would be if you have access to a phone. If you have a phone in your hand, and if you have access to internet, try and look up what your rights are. Educate yourself of what resources are available, what are your rights. And other than that, as when you go in as an immigrant, some of the things that I didn't do, I didn't go outside to work. I was working for my husband. So if you're working outside, and if you've cultivated and developed a good relationship with a colleague that you can trust on, talk to that colleague. If you're in school, talk to a friend in school. Talk to someone who, even if they don't know what to do, maybe they will try to help you find someone else who knows what to do. So
there's another challenge that comes in with people who are in abusive relationships.
Yes.
And that's the innocent victims, children.
Yes.
And animals or pets.
Yes.
Say, for example, in a situation where you endured abuse for a very long time,
Yes.
how did you create ways to protect your children from the mental or physical abuse that they were experiencing?
There was no physical abuse for us, but yes, there was mental, emotional abuse. So once some of the things that I did, I used to go. I used to take my kids and I used to go to my place of worship. So we confided in the priest there. The priest helped us get the right resources and the right people who would support them. My kids had people that were counselors or big sisters, big brothers, like role models, where they could go and talk about what it was like for them to be in the family. What were they seeing? What were they experiencing? So that all their emotions, their feelings, what they had to say were addressed. So
in your situation, it's really, really great that we're having this conversation now, because
yes,
I'm assuming your kids are grown up now.
yes.
Do you ever get to revisit conversations of what it looked like then and how that shaped them?
We have conversations now. My twins are almost 18 years old, and they're going to move out to university, and they are with other boys and girls of their age, but they have a very good idea of, my son has a very good idea of how he should not be to other girls or other women. He understands abuse. He understands boundaries. He has respect. He treats other friends in his class, other girls, with a lot of respect and in a nurturing, respectful way. He knows that he can identify abuse. If he's hearing people talk, how they talk, he can identify abuse. So he's a good role model of a man, a young growing man. Then my daughters will not be in a relationship where they can even get the slightest whiff of an abuse. I am certain, because we have conversations like that. For now, at least I know nobody knows what the future holds.
Okay.
But for now, we have conversations like that. They talk about the past sometimes and say, I would never do something like that to anybody. And then they support me in, when I have book launches, when I do fundraising events, they support me. And when they were 13 years old, I signed them up for the same personal development course that I took, so that I could stand up for myself. So that personal development course taught them, helped them to evolve and grow as human beings that are more aware and conscious of how they conduct themselves. They've also done personal development courses.
What was the role of culture in your suffering throughout the whole time?
So the role of culture, I would say, the obedience, the man is the head of the house.
Was that culture or religion?
It was culture. It's Indian culture.
Okay.
So I would say both, but I was born and raised in India, and I saw the women that I grew up with, my aunts, my grandmother, my mother, all of them were very obedient to their husbands. That's another thing, that the husbands never took advantage of that. They showed up, honoring that. But so because I remember being raised by my grandmother, and she used to say it all the time when I was a child, that if you're an obedient woman and if you take care of your husband and be obedient to him, you will go to heaven. So I grew up like that. I grew up believing that, I have to be this obedient woman. So that was my setback, that I could not there's so many things, like in the Western culture, women have equal rights. You get to be paid for the work that you're doing. I never asked for all of that, but also my culture was my saving grace. Because when I had cancer, when I went through when I was going through all this divorce, it was painful. It was traumatic. And how I coped with it was through habits and through things from my culture. I practiced yoga. I did meditation. And then when I had cancer, my food habits was all my Indian food came to my rescue to restore my health. So all of it was my culture again, and most importantly, my culture to be a believer, to surrender to the higher power, to embrace a life that, okay, this has come to me, this experience has come to me for a reason. And so it was my culture again that brought me back into who I was meant to be, put me on that path. So it was my culture. It is my culture.
So you spoke about how you were encouraged to write your first book. Walk us through the process of writing that book and how that helped you be able to discover what your potential was.
The lady who listened to my story, she supported me with coaching me to write the book. So it took me 2 years to write that book, because every time I wrote a chapter, I revisited those moments. And it was painful and it was hard, and I would stop. I would write something and it would trigger certain memories and certain times in my life that were unpleasant. And I would cry and it would hurt me, so I would stop writing. And so it took me 2 years to write that book. And the lady who published my book also coached me through it so that I could keep working. And the lady who helped me publish the book is also a divorced woman with lots of kids, and so she could understand. She's an immigrant woman. She could understand. She is from my culture. She is from my religious background, so she could understand what I was talking about. So it did help. She would ask me questions from time to time to have clarity, so that I could refocus on the chapter that I was working on. And then after that, I gave the manuscript to her, and then there was an editing process, and then the book was published.
You have a very interesting story. Plenty of immigrants struggle through such struggles without really knowing where to reach out for their resources. And so the idea that, they now understand, hey, start journaling, and they understand, do not challenge the person that is putting you in this awkward, painful place, and to seek help among your peers, to seek help through your neighbors, and out through social media and all other avenues. When do you identify what the right help is and what the wrong help is not?
We all have something called core values. There are certain things. For me, for example, being authentic is important, or for me, being kind is important. So when someone is offering us help, to pause and whatever strategy the person suggested as help, process it and think whether it aligns with what your core values are. Is this something you will be able to live with if you take that action? If this person is telling you, for example, pack your bag and run away right now, is this something you will be able to live with? Is this something you want? In the end, that's my whole thing when I talk about the North Star. In the end, find your voice. Your intelligence will guide you. There is a superpower within you that knows what is best for you, that knows what aligns with you. And that will tell you yes or no. If you don't feel comfortable, even if it sounds like help in that moment, thank that person for trying and say, I will think about it. And for any help for that matter, you don't have to say a yes or no right away. Take your time. Do it.
You talk
on your own.
about a North Star,
Yes.
and finding your own North Star. What is a North Star? And what
So-
is the process of finding that?
Okay, so then it's basically a metaphorical way of saying, let's trust yourself. The North Star basically is a star that is constant in the sky, and it gives people direction. In ancient times, if people wanted to know which direction they are going in at night, in the morning you see the sun and you know it rises from the east, it sets in the west. But at night there is no sun. So how in the olden days people would look, even at sea would look for the North Star. Once they know where the north is, then it's easy for them to know where east and west and south is. So the North Star guides people at night. In night is the darkest time. So when you are hit by your darkest time in life, when everything around you seems dark and you're lost and you don't know how to find your way, my journey for me was to go inward, because there were so many people telling me different things. My brother-in-law was telling me sue him. My father was telling me no, don't do that. After all, he's the father of your children. The women neighbor was telling me call the cops on him, and I would sit with that. And I know that calling the cops on him, I would win in that moment. But it wasn't something I would be willing to live with for the rest of my life.
Why is that?
Because that doesn't align with my character. My intention is to not destroy him. My intention was to stop the wrong. I still respected him as the father of my kids. So I didn't want to destroy him. So my intention was not to also prove I am right, he's wrong. My intention was firstly to make the marriage work. When it didn't work, my intention was how to do what is best for my kids at that moment in time with less damage. Because even if we split up, he would still remain the father of the children. And it is terrible for the children to grow where we are just fighting like cats and dogs. There is a peaceful way of moving away too. That's the path I chose, and it varies. My path is not necessarily someone else's path. Circumstances are different, dynamics are different, people's personalities are different. Because I had cancer, I realized that if I waste half my life in suing him and fighting the case and winning, while I prayed to God and I said, I want to serve his people, I didn't want to, that didn't align with my core value, calling the cops or suing him. I wanted to move on, start afresh.
Yes.
So we have to be clear about what we want. There will be different people saying different things. What can I live with? What will give me peace? I did not get my 50% rights according to Canadian law for being his wife. I did not get 50% of all his assets and properties, and I'm okay with it.
You have found your North Star,
Yes,
and that has led to you helping other people.
yes,
Part of that is you initiated the National Cancer Hero Day,
yes.
which that's really interesting. I did not realize that I could just wake up one morning and decide to have a holiday. That's fantastic.
It's not a
Right?
holiday. It's not a holiday. It's basically a day that we observe for people who are who've been through cancer.
Okay, very good. So that's okay, because the goal of my comment was to demonstrate the ability of what a North Star can do for you. there's people out there who undergoing tremendous abuse. They have an idea of what their North Star may be. They are in a stark situation. They want to get to their North Star. They want to get to what their interpretation of success and freedom is, which is the purpose of our conversation today. Help us bridge that gap.
Okay, so that's where I come in as a life transformation coach. So
Okay.
basically, I work with women who have the courage, they have the education, they have the talent, they have the skill, whatever you call it, however they fit in. They have they have all these qualities, and they're very capable of independently living their lives and raising their kids. And or let's put it this way, they're very capable of living a life of dignity. And then they also have a vision, they have a dream. But based on their circumstances, they know they have the talent, they know they want to get to this place, they want to achieve this or do this or whatever it looks like, but they don't know the path, that they don't have the roadmap. You see, when you sit in a car, and if you have a GPS, when you want to go somewhere, you have to also put in where you are. Then it tells you how to go there. And for a roadmap, you need both ends. You need to know where you
The start
are
and the end.
and where you need to know your destination.
Absolutely.
The road is for me to craft with them.
So I am assuming the bridge is the 7 steps or the 7 A's.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. We're getting to the fun part, I can tell. Walk us through what the 7 A's are and tell us more.
So basically, it is a 6-week program. In the beginning, what I do is we take inventory of where the person is in every area of their life. So our life can be divided. The thing is, here's the thing. Let's say if I give you a pizza and I tell you, this is my gift to you, here's a pizza, please eat it. You cannot take the whole pizza and put it in your mouth and eat it. But what is possible is you cut it into slices and you eat one slice at a time. We do life like that. So we divide our life into these slices, different areas. For example, it is love and relationship, then it is health and wellness, then it is money and finance, then it is career or work, and then it is spirituality, then it is leisure. So now I take a deep dive with the client and talk to them, ask them to write down every detail of where they are in every area of their life. And then my next task is, where do they want to be? And then we create a roadmap. Now the roadmap is not what I prescribe. The roadmap is what the client creates based on their lived experiences, their strengths, their core values, what values do they want to live with, and what they want to create. And so that whole process involves the first step, which is awareness. A lot of the times people are not aware. So that, like I say, let's say all the knowledge in the world is like a big circle, a pizza. All the knowledge in the world is like a pizza. And what we know, let's say take you as an example, Martin. So what you know, let's talk about something you know. So you know how to speak in English, okay? So that's one slice of the pizza. Let's take out one slice of the pizza, and that's what you know about yourself. So you know what you know about yourself. You know that you know how to speak in English. Okay, what's something that you don't know? So let's say, do you know how to do a surgery?
Let's say I don't.
So you don't. And you know that you don't, right? You know the things that you don't know. You don't know how to do a surgery. Maybe you don't know how to speak in Chinese. Maybe you don't know something else, but you know the things you don't know. And then most of the knowledge that remains are the things that you don't know that you don't know. And that's what we discover in the 7 steps, from awareness to authority.
What would the goal be?
The goal will be you get to be the boss of your own life, not of anybody else's life. Nobody tells you what to do, but you make informed choices. And you don't, the goal is that the person stops living as a victim of circumstances, but the person is able to take charge of their lives, plan and design their lives, and take a chance on that.
You've written several books,
Yes.
and before we actually let's plug you in here, because I think it's important for people who want to have a conversation with you or
Yes.
who want to reach out to you. Tell us where people can find you on social media, a website, a phone number, something like that. Anywhere where people can reach you for help.
Oh, they can find me anywhere. I'm everywhere. My handle is at Shirin Ariff, my first name, last name. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook and TikTok. I've just started TikTok. I'm building my YouTube channel. I have a website. It's called ShirinAriff.com. Even if you type in BeYourOwnNorthstar.com, it'll take you to the same website. So I'm available everywhere. My email is ShirinAriff, again, at hotmail.com.
All right, so we know where to find you. You've lived the last so many years in the Western world, and very interesting is that abuse is not just relegated to certain part of the world. Abuse is everywhere
Yes.
in the world, even in the Western world. And so, how do we avoid living in an abusive relationship?
The first, so it starts with women. So when we become mothers, it's how we raise our kids. If I am normalizing abuse in my family by either abusing someone in front of my kids, or if I'm normalizing abuse by being abused by someone in front of the kids, that's where we breed abuse. So it begins with the person who's raising the kids. My question to you is, are you raising abuse? It starts with homes. It's inside homes, in families. And being aware and conscious about that. So if it has to stop, it has to begin from homes. That we don't abuse our kids. We don't abuse others in front of our kids. We don't abuse our kids. And we don't allow abuse to happen. So the kids don't witness abuse.
This has been very interesting. It's been very interesting. I think there's an aspect that we've not really addressed, and we should, and that's advocacy and awareness. Tell us how you're utilizing your platforms to advocate for others who have experienced similar situations.
So the first thing is, most women that are being abused around the world, statistics say most of them don't talk about it. Because of many reasons, but one of them is they're afraid. The other is they feel ashamed. They feel like there's something wrong with them. And they're afraid of the stigma. And the first thing that I do is I talk about it. It is not an easy conversation to have. There are people who don't feel comfortable when I talk about what I went through. And I still do it because the more we talk about, if we don't address a problem, how is it going to be solved? So if we sweep it under the carpet and not talk about it, then a problem is nobody sees the problem. But when we talk about the problem and share it on different platforms, first of all, we are making people aware that there is a problem. Second of all, we are creating a safe space for other people to feel safe and say, I went through it as well.
Born to a Muslim father, to a Hindu mother, and went to Catholic school. Was there at any point the virtues you learned from those three different cultures contribute to helping you see the world from a different hourglass, or was it always conflicting in how you saw the world?
No, I feel like all three of them, I learned, it's been a gift to have all three religious cultures impact who I am. As a result of that, people from all of these religious backgrounds feel safe in my company. I'm able to embrace what they're talking about. I am not restricted and limited in my ways, in the way I interact with people, in the way I appreciate people. And I do not discuss religion. I treat humans as human beings. A lot of I learn a lot from, when I have an open mind, I'm able to learn from everyone. Whether it is learning from the icon of love and forgiveness, as in Christ. He is the icon of love and forgiveness. He's unparalleled. Then we learn about being righteous from the Prophet Muhammad. And then we learn about so many powerful nuggets of wisdom, the ancient wisdom of the Hindus, from where the meditation and how to live a life.
You talked about yoga and meditation.
Yes.
What's the role of yoga and meditation for you today? And what was it when you were going through those difficult times?
So that's an interesting question, because when I went in for mediation for my divorce, the mediator asked me, you've been through so much. What drugs do you take? Do you take any drugs? And I laughed and I said, I don't need them because I have yoga and meditation. So yoga and meditation helped me restore my physical health after cancer. Yoga definitely. Meditation kept me calm. Meditation kept me aligned with who I am. And gave me clarity. It guided me through this whole process. In a country where I was left as like someone who just went through cancer, and I have only kids with me, yoga and meditation was my comfort, my soothing space.
So how are you still utilizing yoga and meditation today?
Not so much yoga, but meditation, yes. I did stop yoga for a bit because I went through I had a fall and had a meniscus tear and hurt my knee. So I got scared and didn't do yoga, but meditation for sure.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you. We appreciate your conversation. It was very heartfelt and really difficult sometimes to stay with you, because we can almost internalize the pain that you are going through during that season. But again, it's always an amazing experience to see how you have been able to turn around your story and have become successful in changing a lot of lives across the globe. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming to the Immigrant podcast and sharing your story with you, because your story is relevant, and it's relevant not just to you, but it's also relevant to us and to other immigrants across the globe who may be struggling in similar situations. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are grateful that you joined us on this powerful episode of the Immigrant Nation podcast. Shirin Ariff's journey has adversity and it has empowerment in it. She has served us today by walking us through the testimony and the testament of what the human spirit and resilience can do and what it can become. We are also grateful to Medicap Group of Companies for sponsoring this episode and supporting voices that inspire change. To learn more about Shirin's work, visit www.shirinariff.com. That's www.shirinariff.com. Stay connected with us on social media to continue the conversation and hear more stories that uplift and empower immigrants across the globe. And as Shirin would put it, be your own North Star. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome again to the Immigrant Nation podcast.